Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Monday. It is December 8th. We are looking at more major lake effect snow Wednesday into Thursday, dropping a few more inches of snow for the upper Midwest and also the Northeast states, the Northeast U.S. We're also looking at around this weekend when we are expecting that Arctic air blast possibly to impact areas in the Midwest. The GFS model is looking at possibly 1 to 6+ inches across areas in Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, and Michigan. So the Midwest and northern U.S., even the Northeast, could get some of this snow action from that Arctic air blast. So Arctic air blast won't just be bringing very cold temperatures, it is going to bring snow with it, most likely. But we also are looking at, I'll be breaking down a few different models. We are looking at 3 different scenarios right now. One scenario has it staying in the upper Midwest areas on the European model. The GFS model has it reaching down into mainly the East Coast, is what the GFS model is showing, in the Northeast. And then the Canadian model has it reaching just the Midwest and Northeast states and northern US states. So I'll break them all down in this video. Let's get started now. Here is our latest GFS model run. We do see that snow that I talked about in the intro in areas in Virginia and West Virginia currently. That is expected to drop 1 to 5+ inches of snow in these areas. And then we go a little bit ahead in time. You can see that low pressure system up here already in North Dakota. That is expected to move across North Dakota and cause a few inches in the upper Midwest, like Minnesota, Michigan, all these areas in the Northeast, cause a few more inches of snow. And then directly behind that, we are looking at another low pressure system, another snowstorm expected to drop down from Canada and cause another few inches of snow for the upper Midwest, and even some of central Ohio and Indiana areas could get a few possible 1 to 2 inches possibly from this snowstorm. In the Northeast, expecting more snow from that area of snow, that low pressure system. And then if we go even more ahead in time, we can see, if we go around to the 12th, we start to see another snowstorm start to develop in the northwest states of the U.S. and North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana areas. And then as we go ahead in time, that starts to head down around the 14th, 13th. That is when we have that major Arctic air blast we are expecting. We can see it starts to head down across areas in Iowa, Minnesota, in Nebraska areas, even Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. And then we see as it moves into areas in Ohio and Indiana, it starts to drop down a little bit lower, causing more inches of snow for southern and central Ohio areas, possibly dropping 1 to 3+ inches across these areas. And then it does head up to the Northeast. It causes more snow for these areas, and even West Virginia and Virginia could get a few more inches of snow from this storm. That right there is too far out to know for sure, but around the 13th to 14th, that's about a decent range to forecast out. That's about this Sunday, this upcoming weekend. So about 6 days out, 7 days out would be the 15th. So it's not impossible, that still could happen, but we do see multiple model outcomes showing. So it depends on how far the Arctic air blast comes down. But if it goes with the European or Canadian model is showing, it will not cause as much snow for the Midwest, at least for the southern and central areas in the Midwest. Let's go look at the temperature anomalies on the latest GFS model. Here is our temperature anomalies on the latest GFS model. We already had a cold front drop down across the Midwest and Northeast, and some of the East Coast got this colder temperatures. Much of the southern areas in the Ohio Valley also got this cold temperatures. You can see this colder temperatures than normal, about 4 degrees Celsius below average. So not a huge difference, but it still is a little bit colder temperatures than average for this time of year. But as we see that cold front move out, we start to see temporarily warmer temperatures around the 10th. That is Wednesday. And then eventually, once we go into the afternoon hours, that warm air starts to head out, and we get another low pressure system that drops down, like I mentioned on the snow precipitation type / rate. We see another low pressure system that drops down and brings more snow to the upper Midwest and Ohio and Indiana areas in the Northeast, causing a few more inches of snow. Then we start to see around the 12th, we start to see that cold front start to dip down. That Arctic air blast start to dip down on the GFS. And that the GFS model has it reaching down into areas like Tennessee still, and much of the East Coast having the very cold temperatures with 20 degrees below Celsius, about, I don't know the comparison between that on for Fahrenheit, but very cold temperatures expected. The purplish blue means basically just a below average temperatures based off climatology for this time of year. So it goes off multiple years and sees that this is colder temperatures than we expected at this time of year normally. The very cold Arctic air blast is expected to dive down. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, GFS has it mainly getting down into areas like Tennessee and mainly the East Coast getting the very cold temperatures, while the European model and GFS shows, well, the European and Canadian model show something completely different. I will show that in just a moment. But and then we start to see the GFS model. This is way too far out snow for sure. But it does have it. The cold, warm air staying down in these areas for a little bit. But then we see another Arctic air blast. Again, that's the 24th. That is obviously way too far out to forecast for sure. But it is a little bit of a hint at something we could see. But I just don't want to mention that too much. It's just I don't want to fearmonger or clickbait or anything like that. But that's just too far out to know for sure if anything was that. But let's go look at the GFS snow total, and then I will go check out the Canadian model and the European model. Again, showing that cold front that pushed down into the Midwest and Northeast states in the eastern U.S. It does agree with that warmer temperatures on the Canadian model around the 10th, so Wednesday into the afternoon we get that another cold front bringing more snow. And then we start to see the cold front have much colder temperatures for Ohio, and those areas just agreeing with the other models. Let's look at the 13th to 14th where we have that Arctic air blast. This one kind of agreed with the GFS and the Euro. It's kind of mixed between the both. So it has it going a little bit farther down south with colder temperatures for areas in central and northern Ohio areas. Much colder temperatures expected on the Canadian weather model. It has it going a little bit farther down south in western U.S. areas down into Kansas, getting much colder temperatures possibly. And the northeast getting the very cold temperatures this time around on the Canadian weather model. So it does have a little bit of difference. It's kind of mixed between the European model and the GFS model. So this kind of is an outlier right now between the two different models, GFS and Euro. Let's look at our snowfall totals on this model. Here's our 24-hour snowfall totals. Again, agreeing with that 1 to 5 inches across West Virginia and 1 to 3 for areas in far northern North Carolina and west North Carolina, and again 1 to 3 for far eastern Kentucky. Does agree with that big snowstorm for the northern U.S. and far northern Midwest with 1 to 7 inches dropping areas like Minnesota and North Dakota, and even Wisconsin areas, and then Michigan getting a few 1 to 5 inches of snow possibly, and far northern U.S. and some in central Ohio could get some 1 to 3 inches possibly across these areas in Ohio, and the northeast getting 1 to 7 plus inches of snow at this time on the Canadian weather model for our 24-hour snowfall totals. Let's go look at the 13th. Look at that snowfall, guys. That is insane. That's about 1 to 2 feet of snow picked up on the Canadian model for areas in Montana and South Dakota, possibly. And then it has on around the 13th to 14th, 1 to 5, like I said, with Ohio, where it has that Ohio and Midwest area. Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, the northern and central state areas of these states, getting that major cold air blast, which would bring that cold air with that moisture from the Great Lakes with slick effect snow possibly, bringing very cold temperatures and snow. We could definitely get school cancellations in central and northern Indiana and Ohio areas, and the northeast getting a couple inches of snow, about 1 to 3 across much of the northeast, and even PA, guys. I forgot to mention PA. PA is expected to also get 1 to 6 inches possibly across much of PA. And it doesn't have as much snow for the northeast as I expected, but it still has about 1 to 3 plus in isolated areas of 1 to 7 from this cold Arctic air blast expected on the 14th. There's gonna be actually one more thing I'm going to add. I forgot to show this, but I'm gonna show one more thing real quick. That is our Climate Protection Center outlooks. Here is the latest CPC Climate Protection Center temperature and precipitation outlooks. I'll show the 6 to 10 day, 8 to 14 day, and the 3 to 4 week outlooks from the official Climate Protection Center. This is their official outlook for temperatures for the next 6 to 10 days. Most likely addressing that cold blast, Arctic air cold blast expected to impact the northeast and possibly even bring colder temperatures down into areas like Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia and Tennessee areas. It's kind of agreed with what the GFS and the Canadian model are showing, with much colder temperatures for the Midwest, the far eastern Midwest areas, and Ohio Valley, and the Northeast, those very, very cold below average temperatures for this time of year. And then it shows the areas like the East Coast getting very cold temperatures. This kind of shows what the GFS model is showing on the 6 to 10 day outlook. And then very above average temperatures for the western U.S. And then if we go to our precipitation for the 6 to 10 day, shows near normal across areas in the Midwest, and the North states have above average precipitation expected, and in the far Northwest expected for above average temperatures. But southern Ohio, southern Indiana, and southern Illinois areas in the southern U.S. expected to have below average temperatures across much of these areas, and even in far north, the eastern northeast, so the far northeast and eastern areas on these states in the northeast are expected to also have pretty dry conditions for the next 6 to 10 days, but that will change as we go into the 8 to 14 day temperature outlooks now. We can see below to average temperatures across much of the northern U.S., Midwest, and Northeast states for these areas, and much above average temperatures for areas like Texas and the western U.S. and central U.S. areas. So we go to our 8 to 14 day precipitation outlooks. We are looking at basically the same thing as 6 to 10 day, with near normal across much of the Midwest, but the southern areas, southern Ohio Valley, and southern U.S. areas expected to have below average precipitation on the latest CPC Climate Center outlook. If we go to our 3 to 4 week, this is way too far to know 100% at all. This goes until January 2nd. This would basically cover Christmas, basically, showing average to below average temperatures across much of the Midwest and northern Midwest area, and above average temperatures anywhere southern Ohio Valley and the southern U.S., all of the southern U.S. getting above average temperatures for these areas. And then if we get to our precipitation outlooks, this is a good sign for people that want snow on Christmas, which I do, as I am in Ohio. But we are looking at a very above average temperature precipitation, possibly across areas in Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and much of the Midwest and the Northeast, northern U.S., and even the central U.S., all with equal chances. So we could very well have a snowy Christmas for the central U.S. and the northern U.S. states, which is a good sign for people that want snow on Christmas, like I'm assuming most people do want snow on Christmas. But that is a good sign for Christmas snow lovers. But thank you all so much for watching this forecast video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more forecasts. Again, I likely will post another update once we have more major changes, or any changes at all to our snowstorms and temperature outlooks. But thank you all again so much for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more forecast videos.